I want to talk about something. Now, it's always been a very touchy issue, and sometimes I talk about it because I know it's a touchy issue, and I know that the Jewish people need to face it. Now, we talk a lot about the Holocaust, and I think there needs to be a lot more education about the Holocaust. But very few people learn about what happened before the Holocaust. And what I'm trying to say is that the Holocaust didn't happen overnight. It wasn't that Jews were a part of society one day and that the next day the societies in Europe were burning Jews and putting them into gas chambers. There was an evolution of anti-Semitism that led to the manifestation of the Holocaust, meaning it took over a decade for anti-Semitism to rise on that level of pop culture to allow the Nazis to be in power and eventually do what they always wished to do. However, what were the Jewish leaders and communities doing about the rise of anti-Semitism as it was rising within society and pop culture? Well, the answer is almost nothing. And most Jewish leaders, I'm talking about heads of communities, heads of organizations, heads of federations, rabbis, as they were engaging with each other, and there's even letters of this, what they were saying is that Jews doing anything about this situation would only make the situation worse, would only bring more attention on them, and would cause even more anti-Semitism. So the best solution was to do nothing and to put their heads down. And you even had some Jewish leaders making the argument that they needed to side with Hitler because although what he wrote in Mein Kampf in his book was that he eventually planned to exterminate the Jews, they made the argument that this was just a crazy time in his past, and that anyways he was going to get into power, so that they had to might as well financially support him, so at least he would be in their favor. And this very mentality of apathy and refusing to actually stand up for ourselves and refusing to deal with the rise of anti-Semitism is what led to the Nazis getting power. Now, it is obvious that the Nazis are those who killed 6 million Jews and millions of others, people who perished during the Shoah and during World War II. However, what I'm making the argument is that it was the Jews' responsibility to prevent the Nazis from getting into power, in which we failed. Now, why did we fail? Every Jew has always been raised with this term, never again. We say it at least once, if not twice, if not more than twice a year. Now, I want to make sure that we understand that pronouncing these sounds out of our mouths does not mean it's not going to happen again. Just because you said it doesn't mean that it will be. What we mean and what we have the intention with when we say never again is that we are taking the generational commitment to make sure it won't happen again. And if it does happen again, it means we failed at our commitment. And that commitment honestly did not start post-Shoah. It started the start of our peoples being a people. Meaning that the fact that the generation before the Shoah failed to recognize the rise of anti-Semitism and failed to do anything about it. Now, I'm not talking about the ghetto uprising that happened once we were already in a cage, or the partisan fighters that were a small minority, too few and too late to be able to affect anything and to really end the Holocaust. I'm talking about the fact that the majority of the Jewish people just walked into the gas chambers, just got onto those trains, and the majority of Jewish leaders at the time failed the responsibility of recognizing the dangers of anti-Semitism and doing something about it in order to make sure it doesn't happen again. Now, a lot of people don't know why my name is Rudy, and it's not just a cool name with 4 letters. The reason for why my parents named me Rudy is because this is actually the story of a Holocaust survivor. Now, my family on my father's side was mostly exterminated during the Shoah. And my parents decided to give me this name in order to represent the new generation. Now, Rudy was born in Germany to a very assimilated family, to a family that thought that they were German, that the grandparents had served in World War I, and as anti-Semitism was rising, what did they say? That they were German and that the German society would never do something to them because they were German first. But Rudy recognized that it didn't matter where we were born, where we grew up, where we lived in, what pieces of paper said whatever name of country or host nation on it, that we were always and forever Jewish. And he recognized that anti-Semitism was rising and that things would only get worse if we didn't fight back. And since people were not fighting back, he decided to leave. Eventually, when he left, he became a partisan fighter, and after the Holocaust, went back to find his family, and only to find that everyone had been exterminated. He eventually finds a group of Jewish orphans and brings them back into the land of Israel. So I was given this name to understand, not only to remember the Holocaust, but to remember the lessons that we learned of the Holocaust, to remember the lessons of what we didn't do to prevent it from happening. Now, this is not blaming the victim. This is transcending and healing our victimization so that we empower ourselves and to make sure that we will no longer be the victim. I believe we need to teach about the Holocaust, but we need to also focus on preventing another one from happening.